Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Beyond the Call with the Richmond Police Department, brought to you by WBON TV. My name is Lieutenant Josh Hale. It is good to see you again. We look forward to doing this for our community. For those of you that may be watching this for the first time, this is our podcast program, radio program that we do to talk about events and things going on in our community. And we have a lot of different guests on our program. My guest today is my boss, actually, Colonel James Ebert, the Chief of Police for the Richmond Police Department. Welcome, Chief.
Josh, it's great to be back, and it's been a little while since I've been on the program, so I'm really excited to come back and talk to you about some things that we've had going over the last year or so. This is one of our great social outreaches that we can meet and talk to our audience directly with no filters, so I'm glad to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. So you're right. There has been a lot going on with RPD the last several months, especially for this year. It's July 2019, so we've had a pretty big year. There's a word that we've been throwing around at the police department lately, and that word is accreditation. So we're excited to hear you talk about what that is with the police department.
So it has, and actually it started for us collectively. Really, the thought process started when I first walked in the door. As the chief of police back in October of 2016. So when we looked through the process of accreditation, we kind of sat down and said, is this something that's going to be right for our organization? How will it help us? What are the costs associated? What are the benefits associated? And for a bunch of reasons that we'll get into throughout the course of this conversation, we decided collectively, if you remember back, as that setting one of the goals for the police department. And we worked, I think, pretty good cohesively from the top of the organization all the way down to the newest members in working toward to achieve this goal. It recently got bestowed on us, and then formally will be at the end of July at the Kentucky Association of Chiefs of Police Conference. We'll get it represented to us officially. And it's been a teamwork effort throughout the whole city to help us achieve this goal, and specifically that we had input from all levels. So to kind of give you a thought process how this came in 2016, we knew that we were low on manpower. You lived through it, obviously, and we were at a point where we knew one of the early things we were going to have to do is a heavy amount of recruiting. And that's fine, that's good. It gives us a change that we need to get the organization back up to the standards we needed, which was, we're allotted 61, and when I walked in, we were in mid-40s. And so when we were going through that, we knew going forward in the future that it was going to be a young department for foreseeable future, and there was nothing we could really do to change that process.
Right.
Lateral candidates help, but you can't build a whole department off of lateral candidates. So we knew we were going to be young for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So one of the advantages of having accreditation is your policy and procedure manual gets an update. So day one, when I came in as the police chief, once we kind of got the initial pleasantries over, I reached up and looked at our accreditation manual, pulled it down, and started going through that. And in the course of doing that, we noticed that there were several policies that were outdated to current standards. Now, let me be clear, what we were doing on the street day to day was for the most part, we were doing the right things, but we didn't have the paperwork directing us to do those right things behind us to support us. And when you're talking legal liability and more importantly, what to do if a supervisor is tied up on the scene and there was no lack of direction from another supervisor available, that policy and procedure manual gives you an opportunity to see what general course of action you should be taking. So example is something that you don't use a lot, thank goodness, is something like an Amber Alert or Golden Alert. Now there's certain things that the state mandates through laws that we have to do by certain timelines. And before we started this accreditation process, we knew of what an Amber Alert was, we knew what a Golden Alert was, and we could kind of work through, but the guidance wasn't really clear. So the reason why you have a policy and procedure manual is if you're on night shift and a supervisor and you're already handling one scene that may tie you up for considerable time, if I was a road officer and I had a report that we felt was a Golden Alert or an Amber Alert, I can contain the situation, go out, read what I'm supposed to do by that policy manual, and have a general guideline of how we should interact for that call that I'm on. And then when you're available, you can come over and kind of verify that what I'm doing is the right thing per our policy. So not only does it limit the liability that the department had, it really just gives a great source of guidance to these new young officers that we knew we were going to have for the considerable future. So we started off through accreditation process. When we took a look at it, we knew we had the policy and procedure manual that was going to have to take a complete revamping. We knew when it comes to record storage and things like that there were some things that we could have done to make more efficient government, as far as like what's required by law and making sure we follow those guidelines. And in addition to, the same thing could be said about the evidence room. We were doing good things in there, but there was things that we could add on through the accreditation standards that would ensure that we have the most efficient evidence collection and return property back to owners in a timely manner. So that's where it all started, was the need from having the new group of officers coming in. We've got young supervision that are learning their ways, not only in their new positions, but how to develop as leaders themselves. So going forward, this accreditation process afforded us an opportunity to give guidance beyond me sitting in office, or assistant chief or majors sitting in office and telling people what to do. It was really designed to kind of get out there and give that guidance. Another thing we looked at was, if you look at Madison County as a whole, there's a lot of agencies of all different types that are accredited. Sheriff's Department's accredited, Berea's accredited agency. Our dispatch center has recently been accredited as a dispatch center, and our ambulance service is accredited. So I felt the citizens of Richmond deserved an accredited police agency. All right, so that to be in the backyard of the Department of Criminal Justice Training Center here in Richmond, to have EKU, one of the prominent criminal justice majors in the state and nationwide, I think the citizens of Richmond deserve to have an accredited police agency. So that put us on the journey of doing accreditation. So to talk a little bit about more what accreditation is, one of the things you have to do is an initial self-evaluation, which I kind of told you a little bit about when we first sat down, but it goes deeper than that. So you have to look at the policies you have. Are they up to date? Are they what fits our community? There's a lot of stock policies out there that you can get from Kentucky Associated Chief of Police that are really good and bring forth a lot of information, but they may not actually fit our specific needs of our community. And that's what we were looking for. So if you recall back, there was a lot of things that I reached out to all levels of the department, to include yourself, and to sit on committees to decide which course of direction we want to go. One, that way we can tailor our accreditation and our policy procedure manual to the citizens of Richmond, how best to serve them. But two, to give you guys collectively as a department a voice in the process, which is very critical. I came from another agency that went through accreditation, but it was kind of forced top down on us, and we really didn't get a say. It was kind of one of those things, here's your new policy manual, read it, and you have like 2 weeks to sign off that you read it. And I didn't want that as the chief of police. I thought you guys would give me more insight, because at the end of the day, the people out in the streets from the law enforcement side are the ones that see the policies affect them, good or bad, the most. And then citizens are right there with them. The person that is most out of touch with where the policies work or don't work is the upper administration. So it is critical, I think, for you guys to give me that feedback. And it was interesting to see on some of these policies, the department members were more restrictive than what was originally wrote. So that tells me that y'all took a vested interest in wanting to put out the best product to serve the citizens of Richmond. So we went through and we started looking at all the policies and got the updates and start getting those approved more and more down the line. And over time, the policy and procedure manual is not a manual that's just a one-time go and put it on the shelf. It's a living, breathing document that's going to change. We've already made changes since the accreditation, and we'll continue to do so. But as we went through that, the first major step was getting a revamped policy and procedure manual.
So one good thing I know from the inside for us is you mentioned that we have a young department, and young departments or young people, especially now, are very app savvy and technology savvy. So our policy and procedure manual is even on an app that helps us out. So there really isn't any reason that if I can't be there as a supervisor or somebody else can't be there as a supervisor, that they can't pull it up on their phone and there's the policy right there. So we basically have everything at the tip of our fingertips. And so I hear a lot of times with people out in the community said, "Oh, I don't know as many officers as I used to know. We're you are so young, but we are really, really good now." And that's there's a lot of good officers that we have.
And we've made recruiting, obviously you've been involved in it, a number one priority in this department. Matter of fact, I think in our last goals it was in the top 3 things we need to do:
That's
recruit
right.
and then retain. And we're working on both efforts every day. Matter of fact, we're finishing through our recruitment process right now. But that recruitment went into, part of the big major thing on that was not only to recruit people, but I just didn't want a body. I wanted high quality, high character people. So with that being the focus, and with that, we're getting intelligent people that can take that app with the policy and procedure manuals, read the manual, interpret it on the scene, and make smart, wise decisions.
Well, Chief, we've talked a lot about it. We're going to take a break for just a second. This is Beyond the Call with the Richmond Police Department and WBON TV. We will be right back with you.
When you donate and shop at the Habitat Restore, you're helping build a home. Donate land, a car, a boat, or even the stuff lying around your house that you just don't use anymore. Your donation can help families in your community. Stop by the Habitat Restore in Clark and Madison counties to find out more.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Beyond the Call, brought to you by the Richmond Police Department and WBON TV. We are here at the WBON TV studios today. My guest today is, again, my boss, Colonel James Ebert, Chief of Police. And right before we left, we were talking about the accreditation and the good things that's been going on with the Richmond Police Department. So, Chief, let's just dive back into the conversation as we were earlier. And I just want to ask, how do you see that our department has changed over the past several years?
That's an excellent question. It really has changed. Like I said, coming from October of 16 to where we're at today, and it's changed a lot of different fronts. And I'd say probably the one that is most noticeable is personnel. Like you mentioned earlier, we get to comment. I don't know a lot of your young officers because they haven't been around a long time, and that's fine. We knew we were going to have to recruit at a high level, but something that we've changed in our recruiting style is priority was put on character of the officers we were hiring. It's very hard to have good, solid indicators who's going to be a great police officer from prior skills because there's very few professions that directly transfer over. Military is a great indicator, but not an absolute indicator. College education is a great indicator, but not absolute. Good, solid work history is a good indicator, but it's not absolute. The consistent things that I look for in recruiting are people who have the ability to communicate, because that seems to be a dying art today and day to day because we're so tied into electronics. So I look for people that communicate, especially in small group settings. And then from that, you already got to have a servant's heart. And yes, that's universal. We like to believe that all police officers or all people in law enforcement have that servant's heart. But I want it demonstrated now before you get into our police department. I think citizens definitely deserve it. I think the members that have been through here, through thick and thin, deserve to have good, solid officers working for them. And even the new generation of officers want to be around people who have like mind of being a servant heart. And so a lot of times we get asked on the side, what would make me an ideal candidate as a police officer? And I ask them, what do you do in your community? And a lot of initial answers I get, well, I'm in college and I'm finishing my degree, so I don't really have an opportunity, or I work a job and I don't have the opportunity. And I tell them it's going to be very difficult to sell me that you're ready for this department, because if you don't have time or make time now in your life in this level, whether it's college or entry level job, to do community interaction, that's not a great indicator that when I put the workload that you're going to have that comes with this job and the stresses that come with this job, then what time are you going to give me to give back to the community? And you of all people know that that's kind of a big tenet of mine is community service. I would hope during my time as chief of police the community has definitely seen that we have been out and about. I know we've had years where we've had over 38 events. Last year it was over 50 events, and we're on a pretty good track to keep that pace. So one of the biggest changes since I've been here as chief is just the personnel as a whole, but then specifically what type of personnel we're focusing in on. And that servant leadership, not only does it go for the entry level, but when we do promotions, it's part of what I want to see. When people are going up for the next level, sergeant, lieutenant, or majors, or what have you, they have to have that ability to not only want to take care of the community that they love to serve, but also the officers they serve. Because one of the things that can sometimes tie into retention issues is if there's a feeling in the leadership positions that they don't care for them. So, and then that we've made it a real focus to try to put people in right positions that have that caring, compassionate mentality. But also it's important to note, recruiting as a whole has changed. When you got recruited, we looked across the table at a hiring board and said, is this man or woman somebody that we would like to have in the department for 20, 25, 30 years. I was talking with another chief of police from a slightly bigger agency the other day, and we're all talking about recruiting, what we could do better, what's not working, what is working. And when we talked to him, it was a very wise chief that has been the chief for a long time. He said, look, you have to realize how recruitment is with the new generation has changed. They consider it in their agency a recruiting win if you hire and retain somebody for 5 years. Now, for us, that's laughable. We grew up in a time frame where, maybe somebody left, but it was rare, first off. And second off, if they did leave, they went to another agency and maybe spent 10, 15 years with that agency. And then just the generational differences that we have today. You have a lot of the younger generation that it's okay, and they've been brought up to okay to move from spot to spot. And so that's something that we're trying to adjust in our recruiting methods. Is how do we find people that not only are the good fit, who are the servants of the public, who have that community eye, but also have shown tendencies to want to be stayed and dedicated to us as an agency, us as a city, us to the citizenship. And then going forward, we got to return that dedication to them. So another one of my priorities as chief of police is to make sure that we're developing the young talent. So as you know, by state law, we're mandated to do 40 hours of in-service to keep our CLEP funding. That's the easy part because the law says you have to do it. But what we take pride in Richmond is we're one of the best trained agencies out there. We do firearms training 4 times a year when the average agency is doing it once, maybe twice if they're accredited. We really look for opportunities to do 80 hours of in-service, which is 40 in addition to what's required by law. And the way I typically run it is maybe your first in-service may be needs of the department, because ultimately we have needs that the agency has to serve our community. But then you may have individual goals and desires that you want to achieve by additional training. And then if the budget allows, then I'll usually try to foster those to keep you developing on paths that you want to do. You've had the opportunity to sit down with me several times, and when we look through it, I always am very passionate about training my relief. I won't be in this position forever, and nor will you be in your position forever. So kind of a third goal is getting the future generation to have that legacy planning. So I like to spend a lot of my time and effort into mentoring and developing the lieutenants we have right now. As they're getting ready to go, we're going to have a promotional process for majors, so they can learn to take over for what I did right and wrong in my time going through the ranks. But eventually they're going to be the leaders of the department, to include yourself. And I know you do with your shift, is you do that same mentality of trying to develop the officers that are under your charge to become the future first line supervisors and move up, and as well as personally develop them even if they decide to stay in the patrol ranks. So I think one of the biggest changes we've had over last year is personnel as a whole, how long personnel stay, but also what the quality of the personnel is. Structurally, we've done a lot of things in our agency internally that need to be done. We're continuously to work on our update of our equipment. We take a lot of pride that we have some of the better equipment that you'll see out in the state.
Absolutely.
Internally, we've been making sure our facilities are updated or kept updated the best that we can. We're always making those constant changes. When I came in, we had some awkward colors, would you say, paint on the wall. So we've gone through that process of repainting, rebranding, and that was another opportunity for me to get input from the different officers at the different levels to see what they would like to see, because ultimately it's our department as a whole. So there's a lot of structural things, and we're going to continue with those changes going forward.
So I guess this was all part of the vision that you had for the police department. It just kind of, so far we're just putting your vision for the police department's future piece by piece by piece to kind of put it all together. Is that right?
That's correct. I think it's fair to say. And I like to not just think it as my vision, but like a code shared vision. I kind of give the ultimate, this is the direction we're going. Now, how we go about getting there, I usually like to get more influence from all the different levels, to include community, the politicians, and the internal members, to get an overall direction of where we're going. One thing I'd like to see going forward is the implementation of a 5-year vision plan for the police department. But to do that, I want to do it the proper way, and what I mean by that is I want to get all the input from internally through the ranks, because ultimately, that 5-year vision is where you're going to be going for 5 years too. And then go around and get out into community and get their input as well, because it's ultimately the citizens that we serve, that we love to serve, and they should have a stake. They should be a stakeholder in what the vision of the police department is. So we're going to look maybe at the end of 19, early 2020 to start really in earnest, start that process, which will be a little bit long process to get a solid 5-year vision going forward.
And so there's a lot of ways that our community can interact with us, and we're going to take a quick break for just a second, and then we're going to come back and I'll tell you about some of the events that we have coming up and how you can meet or interact with the Richmond Police Department. This is Beyond the Call. My name is Lieutenant Josh Hale, and my guest is Chief James Ebert. We'll be back.
Central Equipment, locally owned, family-operated lawn and farm equipment store that proudly sells and services some of the nation's biggest brands. John Deere, Exmark, Kubota, Stihl, and many more. Come in and see why people have chosen Central Equipment for 47 years or visit centralequipment.com.
At Jones Family and Cosmetic Dentistry, you'll receive the gentle, compassionate dental care that you deserve from a dentist. Offering restoration with CEREC, crowns, onlays, inlays, veneers, and bridges, all in one single appointment. Make your next dental visit at Jones Family and Cosmetic Dentistry in Berea.
Hello everybody, welcome back to this episode of Beyond the Call. My name is Lieutenant Josh Hale. I'm with the Richmond Police Department. This program is brought to you by the Richmond Police Department and WBON TV. My guest today is Chief James Ebert, and prior to us leaving and take a break, we were talking about some of the great things going on at the police department and how the community could get involved and just see what we do. So now we're going to tell you about some of those events that we have coming up so that you can be a part of it. I know that we had mentioned a minute ago, Chief, that a lot of people recognize that we don't have a lot of the same officers we used to have. We have a lot of new faces, a lot of good young new officers, but we still want to get to know the people that we serve. So some of the things that we have going on here is are coming up in the near future. One of them is the Citizens Police Academy. And some of our WBON TV staff has done that repeatedly. This is going to be our 3rd year bringing that back to life. We have actually partnered with another agency here in Madison County, so that makes all 7 agencies in Madison County a part of this, and now the circle is complete, if you will. That's going to start in September. So within the next week or so, start checking our Facebook page, maybe even before the end of the week, and we're going to go ahead and put out these applications. We're going to try to make an online application for you, so you can just email that to me, or you can email it to the address, or you could drop it off at the police department. So you must be 18 years old or older to do this, just because of liability for the police department. And you can learn how the police interact with things, how we do certain things. Unfortunately, you will not be the police. We get asked that question a lot, but it is a fun way for you to get to know the other side of law enforcement. Another event that we have coming up is Kids Fest at Irvin McDowell Park. That is coming up also in September. Just check the city's website for that, and that's richmond.ky.us for that. And then you can come out and you can meet a lot of police officers. We're going to have our bike patrol out there. We're probably going to have our K9, our criminal investigations division, the motorcycles. So you get to meet a lot of the police officers and some of the specialized units that we have. And of course, it's going to be getting colder soon. I myself am a fan of summer, but as it gets colder and cooler in the fall, we're going to start having more coffee with a cop. And so as we were talking about getting to know our community and moving forward with the vision and getting the collective information from the community about how we can move forward, that is one way that you can come and hang out with us and tell us what your concerns are and tell us how we can better serve you. These Coffee with a Cop events are hosted at a lot of different places in Richmond, and you can just come out. There's no agenda. We just want to meet you and hear what you have to say. So those are some of our upcoming events that we have, and that's how that you can maybe get involved. A couple of things that I always want to go over when we do Beyond the Call is some public service announcements. It is summertime, so we were just discussing when we were off air just a little while ago about making sure that you lock your cars up, make sure that you take all your valuables out of your car, because there are people that are out that will break into cars, that will go out and get into your vehicles because it's warmer outside. And we don't want that to happen to you. So make sure you're very diligent in doing the things that you need to do to protect yourself and your home. And simple things like locking your doors and turning lights on so that bad guys can't be, or we can see them. Then those are things that can help you. Another thing is we are not monitoring our Facebook and our Twitter pages all the time. A lot of people send us messages on Facebook and Twitter, and we appreciate that, but we cannot monitor that 24/7. So that being said, we will return your call, we will return your message, but we can't do it immediately. So if you have an emergency, it's very, very important that you dial 911. 911 will get you any agency in Madison County or whatever agency that you need, if it's police, fire, EMS, whatever it may be. So for an emergency, make sure you dial 911. If it is a non-emergency, a lot of people don't have this number, but the non-emergency number will get you to the same dispatch, people, and that is 859-624-4776. So for non-emergencies, call that number. Those are very, very important numbers. I would recommend putting them on your refrigerator, doing something with them so you have them. Make sure your kids know how to dial 911 if something happens. But those are things that you can do to get in touch with us. One thing that we have going on this week, because we want to make sure we let everybody know, that obviously it's summertime. We're under some heat advisories. It's going to get very, very warm. Make sure that you don't leave your pets in the cars. Make sure you have, or your children, more importantly, don't leave your children in cars for any reason without any kind of air conditioning, anything like that. Make sure that you give your pets water and just use general cautionary techniques to take care of yourself and your family, because it's going to be very, very hot outside. You know, those are some of the things that we have going on for the police department, and some of the things that are very, very important to us. We want to hear from you. So if you watch this and you think that you need to send us maybe a topic for next time, feel free to do that. Send us a message on Facebook. We'll be happy to talk about something if we can answer any questions that we can help our community in any way. So I'm going to kind of circle back around to the Chief here. He is my guest again. So, Chief, before we go, I wanted to ask you one more question, and I know that you could probably knock this one out of the park. What new initiatives do we need to expect, or are you looking forward to putting and implementing in at the Richmond Police Department?
Well, before I get to that, I just wanted to kind of back you up on some of the things you brought up. The Citizens Police Academy, if you ever wanted an opportunity to kind of get the proverbial peek behind the curtain, this is your opportunity. It does require some level of time commitment, but I promise you that the commitment is definitely worth the time that you invest. If you really have a sincere desire to see what law enforcement, or really the total criminal justice system is, this is one of the best ways I've seen in 20 plus years of law enforcement to get that peek behind the curtain. And then you talked about the incoming heat wave that we're dealing with right now. Another suggestion is monitor the city Facebook account, in that they've got cooling stations set up throughout the city, and they'll put that information out as needed on that. And always I encourage people to monitor our Facebook activities. We always have events popping up with little to no notice. Matter of fact, if you want us to participate in an event, we will reach out to us. We'll try our best to accommodate the best we can with the manpower that we have. But always check that Facebook feed, because we are always adding new content, especially we're getting into the back to school season, so we have a lot of stuff that pops up on that. But specifically talking about some of the new ideas, one thing that we've just got started in the last few months that we look to grow going forward is the bicycle patrol. One of the things I promised was that we were going to bring the bike patrol back, and it's always that balancing between available manpower and being able to do this. So hopefully over the last couple months, many people have had the opportunity to see that the bike officers have been getting out there as manpower allows us to. They've been out not only in the downtown area, but also in some of the neighborhoods that we wanted to get them out in so they can be out. So I asked the citizens of Richmond, if you see a bike patrol, get a chance, wave to them, talk to them. They're doing a very hard, arduous job. A lot of people don't, you see a bicycle and you say, hey, they're riding a bike, that's great, that's cute. Are they doing law enforcement work? Is there real value in it? Look, they're getting some serious coverage. Last time I talked to one of the bike officers at a community event, they had already rode 12 miles that day, and it was about 11 o'clock when when that community event happened. And they planned on doing another 5, 6, 7 miles after. So, you're talking 17 miles of bike riding is some hard work, especially in the summer conditions that we're dealing with. So we look for that program to continue on as manpower stays available. And matter of fact, we'd like to transition it into at least a 2-person unit going forward if manpower levels stay where they're at, to where we can make that commitment to the citizens of Richmond, because bikes offers a unique opportunity to get in spots that cruisers are very difficult to get into. One of which, especially at nighttime, you can hear a car coming and see headlights a mile away, and people that are hiding in the shadows that are breaking into these cars can see it and adjust, go in the shadows, and go back to the criminal activity as soon as the cop cars pass. Bicycles add us an element of stealth, so that it does well for trying to reduce those crimes or the fear of crime. So thank you so much for having me today, Josh.
Chief, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate WBON TV studios they're always on our side with things for this program. I look forward to doing our program again. My name is Lieutenant Josh Hale, and this was Beyond the Call. Thanks so much.
Visit the walk-in clinic at Irvin Primary Care on Friday evenings and weekends with no appointment necessary. A service of Mercy Health, Markham and Wallace Hospital. For those times when it's not serious enough to go to the ER, but you feel too sick to wait until Monday, visit Irvin Primary Care. First Trust Bank can help make your money do more. Ask about their CDs, with annual percentages ranging from 2.27 APY to 2.53 APY. First Trust Bank has the staff dedicated to better serve you. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender, and MLS number 688788.
At Whitaker Bank, your success is our priority, and that is why we have experienced lenders and personnel to assist you with all of your financial needs. With 2 convenient locations in Stanton and Clay City, Whitaker Bank is your partner for success, member FDIC, and an equal housing lender.